What happens when country music royalty sits down for what should be a simple late-night talk show appearance, only to discover the host has a completely different agenda in mind? In just 31 seconds of pure television chaos, Jimmy Kimmel would say something so shocking, so completely out of line, that it would turn a routine promotional interview into the most explosive moment in late-night television history. Picture this: the stage is set, the audience is buzzing with excitement, and Reba McEntire, the queen of country music herself, walks out in her signature red dress, that warm smile lighting up the entire studio. She waves to the crowd, takes her seat across from Jimmy Kimmel, and settles in for what everyone expects to be another charming chat about her latest projects. But something feels different tonight. Jimmy's usual playful demeanor seems forced, almost mocking. His smile doesn't quite reach his eyes, and there's an edge to his voice that the audience hasn't picked up on yet. Reba, ever the professional, maintains her composure, but you can see in her eyes that she's already sensing something is off. "Welcome back to the show, Reba," Jimmy begins, his voice dripping with what sounds like fake enthusiasm. "Always a pleasure to have you here." "Thank you for having me, Jimmy," Reba responds graciously, crossing her legs and leaning forward slightly, ready to engage in what she hopes will be a pleasant conversation. "So tell me," Jimmy continues, and here's where things start to take their first dark turn. "You've been in the music business for, 40 years now? That's a long time. Must be hard keeping up with all these young artists who actually know what they're doing." The audience lets out an uncomfortable laugh, unsure if this is Jimmy's attempt at humor or something more pointed. Reba's smile falters for just a moment before she recovers with the grace of someone who's dealt with difficult interviews before. "Well, Jimmy, I've been blessed to have a career that spans several decades, and I think experience brings its own value. I've learned a lot from working with younger artists, and I hope I've been able to share some wisdom with them too." "Wisdom," Jimmy repeats, drawing out the word like it leaves a bad taste in his mouth. "Is that what we're calling it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks more like you're desperately trying to stay relevant in a world that's moved on without you." The studio falls dead silent. The audience doesn't know how to react. This isn't the Jimmy Kimmel they know, the one who usually treats his guests with respect and genuine warmth. Even his house band looks confused, unsure whether this is some kind of elaborate setup for a joke that hasn't landed yet. Reba sits back in her chair, her professional mask slipping just enough to show the hurt and confusion beneath. "I'm sorry, Jimmy, but I'm not sure I understand where this is coming from. Did I do something to upset you?" "Upset me?" Jimmy laughs, but there's no humor in it. It's cold, calculated, mean. "No, Reba, you haven't upset me. You've just disappointed me." Disappointed all of us, really. Here you are, taking up space on network television, promoting albums that nobody wants to hear, when that time could be given to artists who actually matter. The camera catches Reba's face as Jimmy's words hit her like a physical blow. Her eyes widen in shock, then narrow with a flash of anger that she quickly tries to suppress. Her hands, previously relaxed in her lap, now grip the arms of her chair tightly. "Jimmy," she says, her voice steady but with steel underneath, "I came here tonight as your guest, to talk about my music and connect with your audience. I didn't come here to be insulted." "Insulted?" Jimmy leans back in his chair, a smug smile playing across his face. "I'm just being honest. Isn't that what talk shows are supposed to be about? Honest conversation? Or would you prefer I just kiss your boots like everyone else has been doing for the past 4 decades? The audience is now clearly uncomfortable. Some people are shifting in their seats. Others are looking around as if waiting for someone to step in and stop this train wreck from continuing. But Jimmy's production team seems frozen, unsure whether to intervene or let their host continue down this destructive path. "There's a difference between honest conversation and deliberate cruelty, Jimmy," Reba responds, her voice growing stronger with each word. "And right now you're choosing cruelty." "Cruelty?" Jimmy throws his hands up in mock surprise. "Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot that country music legends are too delicate to handle a little bit of truth. Maybe if you spent less time living in the past and more time acknowledging reality, you'd understand that your time in the spotlight ended about 20 years ago." That's when something shifts in Reba's posture. The hurt in her eyes transforms into something else entirely. Determination. Strength. The quiet power that's made her a force in the entertainment industry for decades. She uncrosses her legs, plants her feet firmly on the ground, and leans forward, meeting Jimmy's gaze directly. "You know what, Jimmy?" she says, her voice now carrying the full weight of her authority and experience. "I've been in this business since before you knew what a television camera was. I've earned my place here through hard work, talent, and respect for my craft and my fans. I don't need to justify my existence to someone who clearly has no idea what real artistry looks like. The audience, sensing that their beloved guest is finally fighting back, begins to murmur approvingly. Some people even start to applaud, but Reba holds up a hand, indicating she's not finished. Jimmy, perhaps realizing that he's picked a fight with someone who won't back down, doubles down on his attack. Real artistry? Is that what you call those cheesy country ballads that all sound exactly the same? Please, you're nothing more than a nostalgia act trading on past glory. And that, right there, is the moment when 31 seconds of pure television madness begins to unfold. The moment when Jimmy Kimmel crosses a line that no professional host should ever cross. And Reba McEntire decides she's had enough. The tension in the studio is now so thick you could cut it with a knife. The audience is holding its collective breath. The band members are exchanging worried glances. And somewhere in the control room, producers are probably scrambling to figure out how to salvage this disaster. But Reba isn't done. Not by a long shot. She stands up slowly, deliberately, and for the first time since she sat down, Jimmy's cocky demeanor wavers slightly. He's about to learn what happens when you push one of country music's toughest survivors too far. "Jimmy?" she begins, her voice now carrying the full authority of someone who's faced down record executives, demanding fans, and industry skeptics for 4 decades. "I think it's time we had a real conversation." Jimmy shifts uncomfortably in his chair, clearly not expecting Reba to take control of the situation like this. His smugness falters for just a moment before he tries to regain his footing with another cutting remark. "Oh please," he says, waving his hand dismissively. "Spare me the lecture from country music's has been queen. What are you going to do? Sing me a sad song about how mean I'm being?" That's it. That's the moment when Reba's famous patience finally snaps. Her eyes flash with a fire that makes it clear she's done playing defense. You know what, Jimmy? You want to know what real artistry looks like? Real artistry is connecting with people. Real artistry is writing songs that touch hearts and change lives. Real artistry is building a career on talent, not on tearing other people down to make yourself feel important. The audience erupts in applause, clearly rallying behind their guest. Jimmy tries to talk over the clapping, but Reba raises her voice, her words cutting through the noise like a sword through silk. "I've sold over 56 million albums worldwide. I've won every major award in country music. I've acted in movies, starred on Broadway, and ran my own television show for 6 years. But you know what I'm most proud of? The fact that I did it all without ever having to destroy someone else to build myself up." Jimmy's face is turning red now. Whether from embarrassment or anger, it's hard to tell. He leans forward aggressively, pointing his finger at Reba like he's scolding a child. "Listen here, sweetheart," he spits out, and the patronizing tone in his voice makes several audience members gasp audibly. "This is my show, my stage, my rules. You don't get to come in here and lecture me about anything. You're nothing but a guest, and not even a particularly interesting one." The word "sweetheart" hangs in the air like poison. The audience falls completely silent, stunned by Jimmy's blatant disrespect. Even his own band members are shaking their heads in disbelief. Reba takes a step closer to Jimmy's desk, her presence commanding the entire studio. When she speaks, her voice is calm but deadly serious. "Did you just call me sweetheart? After spending the last 10 minutes trying to humiliate me on national television? You think you can talk down to me like I'm some little girl who stumbled onto your set by accident?" Jimmy realizes he's made a mistake, but instead of backing down, he doubles down with the desperation of a man who knows he's losing control of his own show. "I'll call you whatever I want to call you," he snaps. "This is my house, and you're just a washed-up singer trying to pretend she still matters. Nobody under 30 even knows who you are anymore." The camera catches the exact moment when something changes in Reba's expression. The hurt is gone, replaced by something much more dangerous. Righteous anger from a woman who spent her entire career proving people like Jimmy wrong. "Washed up?" she repeats, her voice rising for the first time since this nightmare began. "Jimmy, I sold out Madison Square Garden 3 months ago. My last album went to #1 on the country charts and #4 on the Billboard 200. I have a Vegas residency that's booked solid for the next 2 years. But you know what? Even if none of that were true, even if I really was washed up, that still wouldn't give you the right to treat me like garbage on your show." Jimmy stands up now too, clearly feeling threatened by Reba's commanding presence. But instead of matching her dignity, he sinks even lower. "Oh, boo-hoo," he says in a mocking baby voice. The country singer's feelings are hurt, Maybe you should go back to Nashville, where people still care about your pathetic attempts at staying relevant." The audience is now actively booing Jimmy, something that's never happened on his show before. People are standing up, some heading toward the exits, others shouting at the stage. The atmosphere has turned completely toxic, and Jimmy seems oblivious to the fact that he's destroying his own reputation in real time. Reba takes a deep breath, and when she speaks again, her voice carries the weight of every woman who's ever been dismissed, belittled, or told she didn't matter. "You know what's pathetic, Jimmy? A grown man who makes his living by being cruel to people who come on his show in good faith. A host who thinks his job is to tear down his guests instead of entertaining his audience. A person so insecure about his own relevance that he has to attack someone with 40 years of proven success." Jimmy's face is now purple with rage. He slams his hand down on his desk so hard that his coffee mug jumps and spills across his papers. "How dare you?" he shouts. "How dare you come on my show and insult me? I've been hosting this show for 20 years. I've interviewed presidents, movie stars, the biggest names in entertainment. I don't need some country bumpkin telling me how to do my job." The phrase country bumpkin echoes through the studio like a gunshot. Even Jimmy's own production staff looks horrified. Several audience members are now openly shouting at Jimmy, calling him disgusting and demanding that he apologize. But Reba doesn't need their defense. She stands there, completely composed despite Jimmy's meltdown, and delivers the verbal knockout punch that will end this disaster once and for all. "Jimmy," she says, her voice cutting through his rage like ice through fire, "you can call me whatever names make you feel better about yourself. You can try to diminish my career, my music, and my fans. But here's what you can't do. You can't make me stay here and listen to it." She turns toward the audience, her back now completely to Jimmy, and addresses them directly. "Ladies and gentlemen, I came here tonight to share some music and stories with you, but it's clear that your host has a different agenda. I've spent 40 years in this business treating people with respect, and I'm not going to stop now by engaging in this kind of ugliness." Jimmy, realizing that he's losing complete control of his own show, makes one last desperate attempt to regain power. "You can't just leave," he screams. "You're under contract. You have obligations. Security." Reba turns back to face him one final time, and the look she gives him could freeze hell itself. "Jimmy," she says quietly, but with such authority that every person in the studio hangs on her words, "Watch me." And with those two words, Reba McEntire delivers the most powerful moment in late-night television history. She doesn't storm off. She doesn't throw a tantrum. She simply turns around with the grace and dignity that have defined her entire career and begins walking toward the exit. Jimmy, panic now replacing his anger, realizes that his show is about to become the first late-night program where a guest walked off in the middle of an interview. His voice cracks as he tries to regain control. "You can't do this," he calls after her, his earlier bravado completely gone. "This is live television. You're making me look bad." Reba stops walking. She turns around slowly, and the smile that spreads across her face is not warm or friendly. It's the smile of someone who's about to deliver a truth so devastating that it will be remembered long after tonight is over. "Jimmy," she says, her voice carrying to every corner of the studio, "I'm not making you look bad. You did that all by yourself." The audience explodes in applause, so thunderous that it drowns out everything else. People are on their feet, cheering, whistling, some even crying. They've just witnessed something extraordinary, a masterclass in how to handle a bully with dignity and strength. But Jimmy isn't done destroying himself. Desperation makes people do stupid things, and Jimmy Kimmel is about to prove that beyond any doubt. "Fine," he screams over the applause. "Leave. Run back to your little country music bubble where everyone pretends you still matter. See if I care. You're nothing but a relic anyway." The audience's cheering turns to boos so loud and sustained that Jimmy's own house band stops playing. His musical director is shaking his head in disgust. Even the camera operators look embarrassed to be filming this meltdown. Reba pauses at the edge of the stage area, still facing the audience rather than Jimmy. When she speaks, her voice is calm, measured, and absolutely final. "You know something, folks? I've been insulted by record executives who told me women couldn't succeed in country music. I've been dismissed by critics who said I'd never last more than a few years. I've been underestimated by people who thought a girl from Oklahoma couldn't make it in Nashville. But I've never, not once in 40 years, been treated with such deliberate cruelty by someone who invited me into their home." Jimmy tries to interrupt, but his voice is drowned out by the continuing boos from his own audience. Some people are actually leaving now, walking out on a taping they paid to attend, disgusted by their host's behavior. Reba continues, her words now carrying the weight of not just her own experience, but every person who's ever been bullied or belittled by someone in power. What you've done here tonight, Jimmy, isn't entertainment. It's not comedy. It's not even good television. It's just meanness for the sake of being mean. And the sad thing is, you think that makes you clever. She takes one more step toward the exit, then delivers the line that will be quoted and replayed for years to come. I've built my career on lifting people up, Jimmy. You've just shown everyone that you've built yours on tearing them down. I'll let the audience decide which one of us they'd rather support. The applause that follows is unlike anything ever heard on a late-night talk show. It's not just clapping, it's a roar of approval that seems to shake the entire building. People are cheering not just for Reba, but for every guest who's ever been mistreated, every person who's ever been bullied, every individual who's ever wished they had the courage to stand up to someone abusing their power. Jimmy, now completely alone on his stage, makes one final, pathetic attempt to salvage his dignity. "Security!" he shouts, his voice cracking. "Don't let her leave. She's breaching her contract." But something remarkable happens. The security guards, who've been watching this entire disaster unfold, don't move. They stand there, arms crossed, looking at Jimmy like he's lost his mind. One of them actually steps aside to give Reba a clearer path to the exit. Reba stops one last time and turns to face Jimmy directly. The camera catches her expression perfectly, not angry, not hurt, but profoundly disappointed in him as a human being. "Goodbye, Jimmy," she says simply. "I hope someday you figure out the difference between being funny and being cruel." And with that, she walks out. The audience continues cheering, many of them following her lead and heading for the exits themselves. Jimmy is left standing alone on his stage, his desk a mess, his reputation in ruins, facing an audience that's turning on him more with each passing second. In the control room, producers are frantically trying to figure out how to end this show. The planned second guest has probably already fled the building. The musical acts scheduled for later are nowhere to be found. Jimmy's own staff looks like they want to disappear into the floor. Jimmy tries desperately to regain control, to find some way to spin this disaster into something resembling normal television. "Well, folks," he says, his voice shaking, "I guess that's what happens when you try to have an honest conversation with some people. We'll be right back after these messages." But the damage is done. The audience continues booing as the cameras cut away. Jimmy Kimmel, who started the evening as a successful late-night host, has ended it as a cautionary tale about what happens when someone mistakes cruelty for comedy. Meanwhile, Reba McEntire walks out of that studio with her head held high, her dignity intact, and her legacy not just preserved, but enhanced. She came as a guest and left as a champion for everyone who's ever been told they don't matter. In 31 seconds of pure television chaos, Jimmy Kimmel learned what happens when you pick a fight with someone who's spent 4 decades proving that class, talent, and integrity will always triumph over meanness and insecurity. He thought he was interviewing a country singer. Instead, he discovered he was facing a force of nature, and Reba McEntire, the queen of country music, proved once again why she's earned that title not just through her voice, but through her character. She turned what should have been the worst night of her career into her most triumphant moment, simply by being herself, dignified, strong, and absolutely unbreakable. The queen had left the building, and she took her crown with her.